Hi everyone, welcome to Northernlands 2 and our Mobility in Modern Cities sessions. We're really excited because we're going to talk about buses. My name's Paul Connell, I'm founder of ODI Leeds, so I guess it's my fault, a lot of this stuff. And although we've got a lot to learn from our North Sea neighbours in the Netherlands around mobility, one thing we've always focused on at ODI Leeds is transport data. And we're really pleased to have four people who are working on one of our favourite issues, which are buses and how you get everyone on a bus. And it's going to be it's not flying cars that are going to fix things, it's going to be buses. So we've now got 5 people. We did have 4. This is amazing. And I'd like them all to introduce themselves. If we start with you, Amy.
Yeah, hi, I'm Amy Bridge. I'm Ito World's project manager.
Wahid.
Hi, my name is Wahid. I'm basically leading the UX team user research for the Bus Open Data project on behalf of KPMG.
Thanks. Lisa?
Yeah, my name's Lisa. I'm a DFT policy advisor for passenger experience and the Bus Open Data Service.
Great stuff. Richard, tell us who you are.
Hello, Richard Mason. I work for TFN. I'm the information strategy manager, and TFN are heavily involved with the Bus Open Data program, particularly on the fares and ticket work stream.
Great, and TFN are a sponsor of ODI Leeds, and we've done lots of great work with them. And before working with DFT, you might have seen as all aboard the data bus work that we've done over the last couple of years. So to set the scene, we've got a visualization that's been put together by the team. It's about 2 minutes, 10 seconds long. So if you bear with us, over to the visualization and the editing suite. Welcome back. Hopefully you understand a little bit more about what the progress of the program is and what buses mean and what data means. And I'm now going to ask Lisa to talk us through what does Bus Open Data aim to do, what it's going to mean for us all, and where we are now, because we're at some exciting points in legislation and regulations at the moment.
Okay. So the Bus Open Data Service is a new digital service from DFT that aims to transform the delivery of bus passenger information across England and improve journeys for the travelling public. So this is being delivered in conjunction with our partners, KPMG, Ito World, and ourselves. So why are we doing this? So each year, 4.3 billion bus journeys are taken in this country, and half of those, 51%, are in London, with the remaining 49% across the rest of the country. So we think this has definitely been driven by TfL's track record of making transport information open, which they have done since 2007. They've made all of their bus and transport network data freely available through the London Data Store. So a recent 2017 study by Deloitte explored the value of TfL's data and found that open data was being used by 8,200 app developers to power 600 apps, which are now used by 42% of Londoners. And we've sort of seen, same progress within Transport for West Midlands, who have also heavily invested in providing public transport data in their area, and they've seen, recent growth, year-on-year growth of 7.8 million journeys. Gets the backdrop of decline in bus passenger journeys elsewhere. So why do we need bus open data? So we are moving to a more on-demand, convenient transport system. Open data will transform how we travel by providing on-demand services and real-time journey planners. And we want to empower consumers. We want people, to choose buses, and not just passengers in London. We want bus passengers across the country to have up to the minute information about services at their fingertips. So we do think this will have real profound change to bus use in the UK. Okay, so where are we now? So how will this happen? So on the 28th of January, we launched the Bus Open Data Service. So bus operators can go on there and start uploading their data ahead of the deadlines. So these deadlines are being prescribed by regulations, which have just passed both houses of Parliament. So the House of Commons and the House of Lords have debated the regulations, and both have agreed that this is something that we need to do. So this will come into force. So the scope of the regulation encompasses timetables, fares, vehicle location data, and historic punctuality data. This will be a phased approach with routes and timetables to come into effect from the 31st of December 2020, and further requirements to publish basic fares data and location data from effect on 7th of January 2021. And then following this, there will be complex fares data from the 7th of January 2023. This will be complemented as well by punctuality data. So as we know, the regulations only tell half the story about what's happening. This will mean that 100% of bus data will be collected across the country, but really the rest of the story is the programme itself.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've also got Wahid from KPMG, who's working with ITO World and DFT on the project. So tell us how it works.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Paul. So as Lisa mentioned, this year in the project itself, we're at a point where we've got the service of the timetables up and ready already. So from January onwards, this year, bus operators can actually go and actually start putting in the data itself. We're currently working on the AVL as well as the fares. AVL is the location data itself. I've actually got some slides for you guys to actually show you how the user journey.
Of course you are. You're a consultant. You've always got slides. Come on, over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Cool. Brilliant. So I hope you guys can see. So in terms of since the kind of starting of the project a couple of years and months ago, now we've conducted over 200 plus interviews across the industry. And this is from the upstream of people who provide open data, as well as people in the downstream who would kind of use the open data as well. And really what we're trying to do is obviously build a container, itself. So data goes in, someone puts it in, and data goes out just like your bank account. You input money and you take it out. It's just that it's a different person in this instance itself. So we're really trying to refine the process of the upstream as well as the downstream and talk to users. So based on that, it's going to show you a couple of the basic user journeys, that we're going to expect to hit essentially whenever the legislation kicks in. So this is the upstream flow of exactly how a publisher would do what a publisher would do. So this is putting the data into the bots container itself. So as you can see, Cameron the Can-Do is a retail manager at a medium-sized bus operating company. So he basically has a bus operating company as an employee. So what he would do is basically when bots kicks in, he would receive the invitation of bots, obviously read the guidelines, read the implementation, read everything that's there. And then what he would do is basically create his timetable. And so this is only for timetables data, just for this instance. What he would do is essentially use a software, like in these scheduling softwares are already there across the industry. Any of these scheduling software, so he would use that to actually create that trans-exchange data, which is the open data format that we'll use. After that, what he'll do is basically sign on to bots and really kind of upload that data that he has, essentially. There is also the next step, which is he can review the data quality. So we've done some work in terms of doing like 20 different observations, and these are all free. So once a operator basically uploads the bus data, they can see some essential observations or things that they can improve in the data. So that ensures the real quality in the pipeline for the data itself for people who are consuming, like programmers and app developers and that kind of stuff. So after he reviews the data quality report, he goes ahead and fully publishes the data set essentially. And at this point, it becomes fully published and the data consumers can actually see that as well, on that side. And obviously he can view the data sets and do this journey again, essentially for new buses that he has and would run essentially. This is in terms of the consumer flow, and this is consumer, we mean are basically researchers, are programmers, are app developers, and all that sort of people. So the real kind of meat of bots is to increase innovation in the industry through the opening of data, essentially. So here, Ian, the innovator, we've put him, and he's a PhD researcher at a university itself. So what he does is he essentially is working on a specific project, and he searches for bus open data. He finds essentially the service that there's something there, but he is more interested in specifically looking at Bristol because that's his research thesis, essentially. So what he does is goes on and searches and finds a specific Bristol data set. After that, he downloads the trans-exchange file, which is a TXT file. What he would do then is uses like our programming tool to translate that TXT file into tables, tabulated form that he actually needs for his research. So for example, if he's trying to correlate climate change emissions data with the buses in Bristol, he can do that here, in that case. And if he actually finds his data set quite interesting and likes to use it further in the future, what he does is subscribe to a specific data set, so whenever there's a change to the data set, he has it, he knows it. And then in the future, he can use that further as well. If he has any feedback about the data, if there's something that's not, something that's odd or can be improved, he can provide the feedback to the publisher who published the data in the first place. So that's the kind of core principle in terms of how researchers and innovators would use it in the future. That's the vision. And Dana here is another use case of a data consumer who is an app developer specifically. So she has a business kind of function to what he does. So she searches for the data. She goes to GitHub community and finds that basically, hey, there's something called Buzz Open Data that's there, which is a fully open data set. So she goes on to Buzz, does an exploration activity, and really finds that this is something she can use. So what she does is she creates an account and signs up for the API that we provide. And it's like an open API that anyone can sign up to. And it would have basically the bus location data, the static timetables data, as well as the static fares data as well for each of these. So data can really start using the API, and we have like a standard Swagger documentation. So any developer across the world can really pick it up and start using the API, which is has both real time as well as the kind of static data. So that's in a nutshell, the kind of journeys in a nutshell. So obviously, like I told you before, that there's something about these tools of creating timetables and creating the static data. And we're working a bit with our partners at Transport for the North, TFN, specifically on fares. So they're developing quite an interesting fares data build tool for the industry, which is going to output the NetX format for fares. So that's in a nutshell. I'm going to hand over to Richard Mason now, who's going to tell us a bit more about essentially what's going on with the fares and TFN. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Wahid, and thanks to the ODI for the opportunity to tell you a little more about our work at Transport for the North, which is supporting the DFT Bus Open Data Programme. So very early on, TFN recognised that fares information was a key gap in the public transport information landscape. So we decided to develop a fares data build tool. So this tool is supporting bus operators, especially the small and the medium-sized operators, to meet the requirement to provide fares information as part of the Bus Services Act 2017 regulation. The aim of the TFN Fares Data Build tool is to make it simple and easy for operators and local authorities, should they provide a data agent service on behalf of those operators. So the idea is this will help them to create fares data and publish this in the NetX format, which is the new fares data standard in the UK. Like the DFT Bus Open Data Digital Service, our fares tool is being developed to government digital standards, which will ensure that it is as easy to use as registering and renewing your car road tax. We are working hard in collaboration with the DFT to stimulate excitement about this new fares data set, which our tool will enable. We're thinking not only about publication, but also about how the data will be used and how that will get into the hands of passengers. So we are working with developers to ensure it will be integrated into many travel planning apps and websites as possible. Once the fares information is out there, accelerated by the Bus Open Data Programme, we believe it will stimulate further digital and ticketing innovation, but ultimately providing information on how much it costs to travel by bus is giving passengers what they need to make an informed travel choice. It's certainly an exciting time.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Richard. And now I'd like to go over to Amy Bridge, who's going to talk to us about, how this is actually coming together, what it means, and also let's have a glimpse of the future, because we love buses at ODI Leeds. This is going to be transformational in terms of how people use and access buses, but it's also, I think, it's a bigger piece around how the world of data and software is smashing into the maybe more established worlds of transport and infrastructure.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. So as you say, the Bus Open Data Service is incredibly exciting. It is initially going to drive huge benefits for both passengers and for operators. Passenger apps are only as good as the data that powers them. And by aggregating data on timetables, vehicle location data, and data on fares for every single bus journey in England, and by making this openly available from the same repository, passengers will get better access to this comprehensive, high-quality data through innovative apps, and that in turn will drive growth in ridership and in operator revenue. But really, that's just the starting point for BODs and the benefits that it will deliver, because beyond this, what BODs will also do is, over time, it will generate a comprehensive, standardized, high-quality, national data set for buses, something that, as far as we're aware, is the very first time that a country has done this. And once you have this sort of data, you can start to build up an incredibly powerful transit data model over a long period of time. And on top of that, you can layer other national data sets, for example, other transport mode data, socioeconomic data, and also environmental data. And collectively, you have a hugely powerful tool once you have all of that, that can influence and inform long-term governance and policy decision-making in a way that's never been possible before. So whilst the immediate impacts of VODs are incredibly exciting, the longer-term impacts will be even more, as you say, transformational. It really is a world-leading service. So yeah, very exciting times for the Bus Open Data Programme.
And it is, and I think I just maybe ask Amy and maybe some others to jump in here, because we talk about being radically open at ODI Leeds. People sort of get what we're talking about, but this really is a radically open project in that anybody would be able to build a model from the data that's published. Anybody would be able to use their own model to challenge someone else's model, and we should get much better models as we move forward. And that move from, rather than trusting experts to tell us what's happening and what might happen in the future with a model, we can actually have real data which can tell us, oh, over the last 5 years we've done this, we intervened in this area and built a bus lane and it improved our connectivity by X. So we can actually measure the interventions and measure the impacts of the interventions and get much better bang for our buck in terms of that world. So I won't ask DFT what it going to mean in terms of political, but maybe ask you, Amy, for your view about how that's going to change the way in which we make decisions about transport infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, by opening up that data in a way that it currently isn't, as standardized and open as it could be, what it does really is to drive transparency with the data about buses. And as you say, it opens it up to literally anybody. So anybody can use the Bus Open Data Service to pull the data that it holds, and that's something that so far has been very difficult to do because of the heterogeneous nature of the data types around buses. And so it will be the first time that it really is open to the masses, and by driving increased transparency about the data and allowing anybody to use that data and to put it into different models and be able to analyze that data, it really will drive more innovative analysis and consumer applications to be able to use buses as a really important mode for the future. And if you look at something like rail, where they've had open data for quite some time now, you can see that there's a much better continuity of information between apps. So when a customer goes into different apps, they tend to see the same information. And at the moment, that's something that customers have said they don't get as much of with buses. So if they go into one app, it says one thing, in a different app it might say something different. And so by increasing the transparency and by standardizing the information that's out there, it really drives the trust that passengers can have in buses. And as we all know, trust in the data is absolutely key for passengers to use those modes and to start to switch from car journeys into rail journeys, but also buses and other transit modes.
Thank you. That's amazing, and we're looking forward to watching the progress of this and then joining in where we can in the future. So what I'd like to do is say thank you to all of our speakers. Really exciting work that we're all doing, and I guess as it goes through, the regulations go through Parliament this week, the programme is on track. It's a real success story. So thank you very much. See you soon. Cheers.